Welcome to New Business in Later Life with me, Ildikó Sealey. I'm an entrepreneur, the routine queen, and the champion of thriving over 50. I'm obsessed with morning routines, energized living, and building businesses that work with your life, not against it. Let's dive in. So what do you think is the hardest thing for people in later life to start a business?
Oh, that's a juicy question, isn't it? Oh, wow. What's the hardest thing in later life? I feel that it's the belief in oneself that they can actually take that step forward and do it, because in later life, we have gone through so many things. And I think sometimes that it's that one thing that just holds us back from taking that step forward, and that fear. It's kind of like feel the fear and do it anyway.
Kind of, but do you think that's really weird? Because in midlife, we have already done so many things. So why would people feel or have the lack of belief in themselves when they've raised children, they've had careers and stuff like that? Why would it be so difficult for people in midlife to start a new business?
We tend to tell ourselves stories.
Okay.
And unless we actually look at the achievements that we've made throughout our lives, and that's what a lot of people forget to do, looking back at all the achievements and joining the dots up. So I think if there was someone coming to me as a coach, and they are starting a new business, a lot of people sort of say to me is, I can't do it. I'm scared. What if I fail? And that's when we start going through acknowledgements and really looking back and homing down on, as you say, if you've raised children, if you've, what are the challenges that you face with your family? Because, I believe that women in leadership are great CEOs, because we are the CEOs of our families and our lives.
Absolutely.
When we've got kids, right? We're the ones that run the household. And I think until you look back on your life, until you really, really hone down on the things that you've done, even from when you left school or even when you were at school.
Or
because
kids.
We've had challenges that we faced, but we forget. And then we just create this story in our heads that the what ifs, what if I'm not good enough? What if someone judges me? What if it fails?
Is it more like the fear of the unknown?
I think it probably is. I think it's more about the stories that I think that we tell ourselves.
Like,
a lot of podcasts that I listen to, and a lot of people that I speak to, even though they'll say, I want to do this and I'm confident, when it actually comes to the crunch, that voice
shy away from, I don't know, for me, mind you, I know I'm fairly unique in my approach to anything and everything, but it's kind of like that stumbling block of the I don't know how to do this. And then instead of looking into how to do it, and to me that was one major kind of turning point in my approach to everything, is instead of wondering about how it's done, I actually ask myself, okay, how do I do it? Or if someone tells me, oh, it's only a small percentage of people who achieve success in that field, okay, how do I become that 1%? What do I do to get me there? Do you think people are too scared to ask themselves that question?
I think some people just don't know. Literally,
to ask,
even to think about planning it, even to put together that plan. It's like, I've got this great idea, but what do I do?
Yes.
And then they'll just sit with it, and then they don't do anything.
But then, of course, there comes all of this massive issue of, okay, we've got this love for something that we want to do, but then we don't know how to run a business. Do you have any stories you can tell on this line where you've got clients perhaps who are going through this sort of journey?
Yeah, I've, it's interesting, because when you speak to clients who are running their businesses, a lot of the same issues are issues that we generally deal with in life, and it's overwhelm, it's sinking underneath the work, as a woman running a family, being a good wife, being a good mum, and then having to juggle work and kind of pursuing that dream of setting up this business. And then what happens is there is an element of guilt that comes in, because when some of my clients have staff members and they have to kind of leave or, go off and run off at duties. They feel like they're abandoning their staff.
Oh, how
So
interesting.
there's an element of kind of, people pleasing that goes on in terms of, as a woman, I think running a business, that we want to make sure that everyone's okay. We want to care for them. And I think what we need to do is step out of that and become sort of more in our leadership brain and our leadership role. And by doing that,
Which is, sorry to interrupt, but that's really interesting because we are already leading not just our lives, but our family's life anyway. So women, well, okay, I say we, I don't actually have children, but still run a household anyway. And women maybe just don't make that connection that they are in a leadership role in their life already.
I think it's an interesting, that particular subject. I'd like to go back to what you just said before, though, about, women that are currently, running their businesses and feeling very, very overwhelmed because they're desperate to make the business work. They're desperate for it not to fail. They're desperate to bring in money. And when that desperation comes in, they forget the reason why they've set up the business. And what you end up doing is sitting in a complete mess and actually not knowing where to start. So walking into your office with piles of paper, emails coming out your ear, you're being called off because there's an emergency, but only you can deal with that situation. And it's about putting the structures in place. And that's why I mentioned leadership, by stepping up and actually thinking, as a leader, what would I do sitting at the top of my castle, being queen of the castle, and who would I instruct to do what, and how am I going to make that happen so that I can trust those people enough that I can release that control so that they can go off and deal with those emergencies and deal with those business meetings.
I'm kind of going through that sort of transition quite literally, where I'm taking on support now, because in order to run my business as opposed to the business running me, I need to step out of that. Do you find that people generally find themselves in a seat in front of you when they are in that kind of complete mess? Or do you actually have the pleasure of having clients come to you before they get to that point?
I have all kind of different clients, different age groups. I mainly coach women in midlife, but I'm also speaking to the younger generation at the moment. I've got kids that are sort of in their sort of early 20s. And I have a bit of an affinity with that sort of 20-year-old decade generation. And I think the younger generation, what I'm trying to help them with is navigate those challenges before they get there. So when they do get to the point of running their own business or working in within a business and they want to move up the ladder, is think about yourself as being a leader, be empowered. What would you do if you ran that company? What could you think about? So asking those questions to really get them to think about their role, what strengths they've got, what skills they've got, to then create some more confidence in actually walking and stepping forward.
Well, interesting. It's kind of the same set of question, really, but giving the young people the education is setting them up for life, really. And sometimes I look at young people when I meet them at all sorts of training events or networking events, and they get exposed to things that I was never exposed to when I was young, or that was kind of adventurous, obviously getting on a coach and going to another country and just start up a whole new life. But still, I sort of envy them. I'm really quite happy that I've given myself the opportunity at 50 to start something new. And then, of course, it's now growing into several things new. But, oh, my goodness, I wish that I had the education 30 years ago.
That's a crusade that I'm probably going to be on next year, is helping the 20-year-old, kids that I'm going to call them kids. I shouldn't. Young adults. I call them kids because I've got kids their age, and I need to stop doing that. So the young adults, that the generation that either have left school or college and have gone into work or don't know what to do with their lives, or have left university and they are excuse my language, but shit scared and walking into an office, walking into that environment, because it's so different from when we grew up.
Today's youth has completely lost the communication channels anyway, because we are living our lives on our phone, which is now kind of a bit of a cliche. And I've heard it from a number of people when they instruct their young staff to make a phone call, they look scared, quite literally, like, do I need to pick up the phone? Like, really? You want me to speak to somebody? Like, how does that work?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a real, I think it's a real situation that I think businesses are in. I'm putting together workshops at the moment to help with communication, collaboration, what it feels like to be in an office environment, to actually have a personal connection with people in the office. I came from the flexible office world, so we were a provider. I worked for a provider as director of a business, and I used to, do office viewings, and I was client service director. And I'd walk in, and a lot of the conversations I was having with my clients was, we can't get people back into the office. And I stood there and I said, well, just look around you. I said, how many people are in the office today? And they said, I don't know, 15. And I said, have any of them spoken to each other? Do they know each other by name? And they went, I'm not sure. And I said, well, you should be sure. You should know, because they were coming in on different days. So some people would drop into the office on a Tuesday or a Thursday, or, whatever their hybrid sort of model was. And then the people that were in there didn't actually have a relationship with the other people that were in there and didn't know them.
I can't even imagine this.
Right.
This is it like a post-COVID kind of effect?
Yeah. It's post-COVID. Now, I look back on my office life and my sort of, life working in the corporate world, and I've got friends that I'm still in contact with from when I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
Where I was an office manager in London in a building, and we're still friends, but we had a connection. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that you just have to talk small talk all the time, but it's about learning how to approach people and have a conversation.
Yeah.
And if you're in the office, go out for coffee with people, have that connection, because you don't actually know. And we talk about mindfulness and mindsets, and, people have anxiety going into the office now. Well, somebody else might be feeling exactly the same.
They just don't communicate it,
but
do
if
they? But then as a leader, we need to pick that up, don't we?
100%. And you can put a bar in your office and you can put a nice sofa in your office, but unless people are talking and communicating, you're not going to get that experience and that atmosphere, which is what we were used to.
I can't even imagine what's going on now, because I left the corporate world in sort of 2014, and I've not looked back. And to be honest, I don't really want to look back either. But it is very interesting talking about it, because young people coming out of university, they're not all going to be starting a business, even though I kind of feel like that young people of today are a little bit more adventurous, perhaps than maybe we were 20, 30 years ago. Maybe society's rules are being broken down, but in a different kind of way, perhaps.
I think they're more, I wouldn't say adventurous. They're eager for success, because they see what's going on social media. My daughter quite openly said to me she wouldn't have a family until she's rich. Mum, I'm not having a family until I've got enough money to have a family.
Did you say to her that kind of the right time never comes?
And I was like, okay, that's up to you. But it was interesting how the younger generations are seeing us obviously financially struggle, hearing all the stuff that's going on in the UK. Then they see entrepreneurs online all the time. Some of it's real, some of it's not real. They don't really know.
That's interesting. So you're obviously very involved with this sort of young adult age group at the moment through your children.
I am with my children, and I'm developing my coaching so I can start helping groups of other children.
How do they deal with this real, unreal, like the way AI is taking over the world kind of thing? Can they tell what's real, what's not real?
One of my kids is very against AI. And we always joke about it, because I'll always have a chat with my AI bot about certain things when I need some assistance with something.
Yeah.
And she said to me, AI is becoming narcissistic. And I said, why is that? She said, because it agrees with everything you say. So I've now turned around to my AI and said, are you saying that to agree with me, or is that your opinion?
Well, for a start, some teach that the major difference that will always remain is that AI doesn't or can't have an opinion. Although sometimes I do ask questions where it comes back very intuitive for sure, but sometimes opinionated. It sounds opinionated anyway.
Yeah.
But the way I get around it is that I ask it like a double-sided question. Give me good and bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't want it to agree with me. I'm trying to think if I ever have that kind of conversation with it to ask for an opinion in a way. Although I think sometimes like, what
it's
do you
not
think?
really an opinion. It's you've given me a piece of information.
Yeah.
I would like to put forward this piece of information because it feels right for me. However, and let's use social media as an example. You are my social media expert. If I write that, I don't know, if say I'm writing a post and I want a hook,
Yeah.
right? Because everyone needs an opening hook to
Yes.
their social media post. That doesn't sound like me, but as a social media expert, should I use that hook or should I be more authentic to me because you know my voice?
Well, you should always be more authentic because people will pick up on it.
Right. And then it will, and then we have that, and it's not, and it sounds bizarre having a conversation.
No, you are having a
but
conversation.
I'm having a conversation with it. But it was more I was doing it to challenge AI to say, you know, to understand or to listen to what my daughter had said to me about it being narcissistic, which I think is ludicrous.
I'm trying to sort of figure that out because
it's trying to be nice to you. So it's feeding you all these nice things, but actually it might be leading you down the wrong path.
Okay.
I think that was her view. That was her view on it. That was her view. But I think interesting, going back to your question about do I coach people who are starting their businesses? Do I have that pleasure? I have coached a woman who was starting a business and then realised that it wasn't the right thing for her.
Running a business or the topic that she chose?
She was changing her line of business and was trying something new and literally felt like a kid going back to school again. It just didn't feel right for her. She felt almost frightened to walk in every day. Oh, wow. She was doing some training. And then when she created this business and set it up in a retail environment, she still felt it wasn't right for her and then came back and said to me, I've decided I'm not going to do this. I'm going to go back to what I was doing. And I said, that's probably the bravest thing you've ever done. Because to understand...
turn away, cut your losses early.
But to understand what works for you. She wasn't enjoying it. That's so much more powerful than somebody who's running a business, had a passion for it, and is now sinking underneath everything, can't cope, and it isn't doing the stuff that lights them up. Because I think you're never going to, if you're in a business and you're running it for 5 years, just say it's 5 years now, and you're sinking because you're not doing what you set out to do. You had a joy and a purpose as to why you set up that business, and that light's being dimmed. You know, the purpose is bring back that light. What can you do? And make sure that you use that as your driver to get the stuff done that you don't really want to get done.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole concept is so interesting because we are all so talking about building businesses and stepping out of the doer kind of role into the leader kind of role. But then at what point do we actually lose the tasks of what we wanted to do, what we set out to do, if we wanted to scale our business? And when does the soul kind of go out of it? Or how much do we keep ourselves in it?
I think it's about reflection. I think it's about making sure that you build in some reflective time in your week. So at the end of every week, look back on your week and look at what you've achieved. Look at things that you've enjoyed, that you've done. Look at the things that have made you feel low, down, or stressed out. And then take those things that have created a negative impact on you and think, how can I move into my next week and recreate that in a different way?
Okay. I just recently got myself an accountability partner and I'm super happy about it. And we assigned Friday late afternoon to do our call. largely we sort of go through the stuff that we did manage to achieve, obviously cover things that kind of didn't quite get done. It is fabulous to go through all the stuff that, and of course the accountability point is that you set out things to do and then you do them. And then you know that every single week you're moving the needle forward.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your end of week?
My end of
review practice or review sort of routine?
My end of week is preparing for my podcast because it's what I enjoy doing.
When do you record it?
And I record weekends.
Right, okay.
I record at weekends. Aaron, who is my producer, he works in TV. So during Monday to Friday, he works on Morning Live on BBC. And at the weekend, we podcast. So he takes his time out to help me, because we met each other through a coaching group. And I did one of those things, and it was something. As a child, I trained at drama school.
Okay.
And my, from a very young age, it was stage. Then it was, I was completely focused on becoming a TV or radio presenter. And I walked away from drama school having had a scholarship and just lost every single bit of confidence that I had.
Why did you walk away from it?
I just felt lost. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know where to start. We were our intake was very young. There weren't that many, I was 21-year-old TV presenters out at that time. They were that bit older than me. And I just felt very lost, and I didn't have any direction, didn't know what to do, scared to go to auditions.
You didn't have a leadership coach.
Exactly. And I think that's, and I did do a few little acting roles in between, things that I just happened to stumble across and fall into because I'd met somebody and I'd mentioned what I was doing or what I had done.
That was your passion at the time.
And it was my passion, and obviously they could see me light up. And I did do a few parts. But I chose not to step into that space for fear of failure. And I think maybe that's why, looking back on it, that's maybe why women in their midlife, it's that failure thing, it's that not believing in yourself. Yeah. And I had to do a lot of work on myself to step away from the corporate world and decide to go on my own. So I left my full-time job this year to concentrate and build my coaching practice, because I'd been doing it on the side for a while. I've always been a hustler. I've always had my day job and always had something that I've enjoyed in the wings where I could make a little bit of extra money from. And it was the day that we launched the podcast. I remember I woke up that morning and I thought, I'm going to hand my notice in. I didn't even talk to my husband about it. I didn't talk to anyone about it. I just knew. I just thought, this is where I'm meant to be. This is my space. I love hosting my podcast. That's my joy. That's my passion. I love interviewing women. But I also then can share my coaching knowledge and expertise and give complimentary free resources as part of my podcasting, and build a community where women feel supported, where we can talk about all these in-depth challenges that we all go through.
Well, I totally share that, because having started a podcast myself exactly 6 months ago, I think it is right now, I'm totally passionate about it. As you say, completely share your view. I love interviewing people. It is so exciting to sit here. So going from obviously launching a podcast into, I don't know, crowded marketplace. Apparently podcasting is not quite as crowded as some other marketplaces like YouTube. Mm-hmm. But you are now sort of carving out Real Women's Stories, which is the name of your podcast. So what were the key processes to help you build that momentum to get you where you are with your podcast?
Oh, wow. So I'm going to be completely honest with you. We just went for it. There wasn't any structure. There wasn't a thought process in mind. It was, I was in a coaching group, and within our coaching group, my coach, because as a coach, we always have coaches.
Yes, of course.
Always. She was asking us all to share what we do and who we are. And of course, I now always am the first person to do that. I've learned not to sit back. And she was encouraging us to set up calls with each other. So when I saw Aaron's name and what he did, I was thinking in my mind in the beginning, I wanted to learn how to use my phone to film for social media.
Right. Okay.
It wasn't even the podcast. I was growing my coaching business and I want to use social media. So I need to learn how to film myself.
Yes.
And, hold my camera, are there any tricks of the trade that he could give me? And then through our connection, I was having conversations with him and I just literally said one day, can I ask you a question? And he said, what? And I said, would you ever do a podcast? And he sort of went, why, what's your idea? And I said, well, look, I've always wanted to do presenting, and I feel that hosting a podcast would be something that I'd be really passionate about and that I feel that would really enhance my coaching. And I could bring some of my own personality into it and really fulfill not only a dream, but share all my knowledge with a community.
Yes.
And that's really, I think, what presenting does. It's not being on show. It's about sharing things and helping people and creating a lovely community where people feel a part of something.
Yes, definitely.
So I said, look, I want to interview women, real women, about their stories and about the challenges that they faced in life, because I think by sharing our stories, we can really inspire other people. And I think that is a real in trend at the moment with people. If you see people on LinkedIn, they're sharing their personal stories and everyone's going, wow, that's amazing. It's really inspirational. And I think that is what the podcast, that's what I wanted it to be about.
Yes.
But then delivering a coaching episode midweek was to enable people to have some kind of resource out there that's free of charge, that's a little bit of coaching, high level coaching, that would just be me in someone's ear talking to them. So they just feel like I'm a friend. And if they're having a hard time, they can reach out to me and they can email me. If they want to go on a coaching journey with me, that would be a bonus. That would be amazing. I love coaching. I love taking people on a journey because I've been on so many myself.
It's so interesting talking to you because it feels like a little bit of a coaching session for me, because I'm just that little bit behind, because just now I'm thinking about doing something very similar. I've launched my routine club, but I help busy entrepreneurs pick up good routines in every area of their health so that they can run a successful business. And the idea has just come up. I was talking to my editor to say, to bring out additional sessions like podcast episodes where I do something what you've just described.
Yeah.
And also I wanted to comment that it's really interesting that sort of 30 years down the line, you've effectively gone back to your roots.
That's it.
That was always in you.
100%.
That you wanted to present. And I think it was a little key to your story there.
Yeah.
That you are doing it now. And maybe you matured into that dream.
Yeah, it was interesting. Somebody asked me a question the other day, and I think it was, I'm going to be interviewing a doctor, Dr. Carol Talbot. She's a very interesting lady and doctor, and she delivers scans for you, and it's about your timeline, and it's about where she's not a clairvoyant, she's not a medium, but she asks you certain questions, looks at your name and your date of birth, and then she creates a report based on your chakras, based on the answers that you've given her as to where you are in your timeline in your life. And my purpose for doing that was, is this the right time for me? Is this my moment? Is this my time?
So did you go to her as a client?
Yes, you can go to her as a client.
Invited her into the
she's
podcast.
Going to be coming onto the podcast, but I thought in order for me to be able to understand the process of what she does, I need to do this scan. Now, we've only just done it and I've only just got the results back, but it was very interesting to see where I am right now. And, I think looking back, I think one of the questions was, do you think that it was the right time for you to be doing what you're doing now, or earlier on in your life when I had that passion and when I was in my
I don't think you lost
20s.
your passion anyway.
I didn't lose my passion, but I wasn't ready.
Exactly.
I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for it. I needed to go through my life. I needed to experience the challenges that I faced throughout my life.
And bring those life experiences with you to pair it up with your passion to now do it.
Exactly.
I do feel like that often.
Exactly. And I think it's so important. And I'm very, very much a person that will go, look back on all your achievements in your life.
Have you always been like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My mum and my dad split up when I was very young. And my mum would, sometimes say to me, oh, it's a shame me and dad aren't together and, things are happening. And I was like, it's okay. I'm learning. I'm learning from your experiences. It's life. And my daughter was the same with me. Unfortunately, my first marriage broke up. And, I've always said to her, are you okay? And I'm sorry. And she was like, no, it's fine, Mum. The same mindset as me. I'm learning from this. I've learned to take the good from this.
That's beautiful.
I've got two dads. I've got a dad that loves me, that didn't have to take me in and has, and we're a blended family.
That's such an interesting phrase you use, the blended family. You mean like two divorced families coming together kind of thing?
Yeah, well, my husband lost his first wife,
right.
so he was a widow. So blending a family with two children that had lost their mum, and my ex-husband's quite estranged from my daughter, so that was quite hard. That was quite hard to deal with. Yeah.
Well, for your daughters to accept a new dad, or for?
I think it was more for, and I call them my children because they are my children, my two eldest children who are my stepchildren, to accept me into their lives because
right.
they'd lost their mum at a very young age, and to accept another sibling into their life.
There could be that sort of resistance that I've had a mum, I don't want another mum.
I think it was just they were still
grieving,
trying to find their way. We had a lot of help. We had a lot of therapy. We've done a lot of work on ourselves as a family, as individuals. Me and my husband have done a lot of work together. Most of the work we did really was parental therapy.
Right.
And then we did group therapy. But, all those experiences have just made me a stronger person. And I know that in my heart that I don't doubt myself anymore, because when you can move forward in those situations with children that have lost their mum, and I always said I will never, ever, ever understand what that feeling is like. And it still makes me feel upset now thinking about it. But I was never going to leave them. And I was going to stand by them, because I thought, you've lost one mum, you're not going to lose another mother figure.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they would have felt lost. And through that experience, it's having the strength to do the things that I'm doing now, because I trust my intuition. I know that I'm a good person.
That's beautiful. So having these experiences with your stepchildren, I mean, this is really quite deep and very emotional. I imagine quite an emotional journey it must have been for all of you. How does it fuel your coaching business?
It enables me to show empathy, and I am a very, as a coach, you're non-judgmental.
Supposed to be anyhow.
You allow people to have a space.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times in business, what you find is that somebody will come to you with a big goal in mind, but in between that big goal, there's other personal stuff going on.
Always. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And it's that people management of it, isn't it? Never mind somebody wanting to do business, but the conversation always brings up those underlying issues, and they will always go back to private issues one day.
Absolutely.
I think if somebody doesn't do very well in business for whatever reason, there will be personal issues.
Yeah,
but of course,
we've created habits. We've picked up habits along the way from when we were younger, and it's about how can we look at those behaviours, and how can we start moving forward and leaving those behaviours behind and changing them, so that you can then show up in your business being a leader, being that person with confidence, like I said, with intuition, knowing you're a good person. Because I think a lot of the times we'll make decisions in our businesses, or we may have a big team that we're managing, and we have that, is that the right thing to do? Trust your intuition, because you know that somewhere in your life you've made a decision, and you've made the right decision, or you may have made a choice that hasn't been right, but you would have learned from that choice.
Exactly. I'm a true believer, and it's something that I advocate, that you can only regret things you haven't done.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is either a good experience or a learning curve.
Yeah.
You can't regret. You might think, I regret doing things, but no, you're learning from it. And then you take it to your future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, I think it's very important for people in business to have coaches, not necessarily me, but I think it's really important because we look at all the top athletes in the world. We look at, people that are boxers and, sprinters and all the Olympic athletes. They've had coaches.
Oh, every single one of them.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I can guarantee you part of their coaching will delve into some personal stuff that's happened where they can release it. Because if you're hanging on to stuff in your brain, it's all about brain connection with sports. It's not necessarily, yes, you have to be fit, but it's that mental attitude that I can do this.
So focused on you.
I'm capable of doing this. I am capable of doing this. And a lot of it is about self-belief and taking that step forward, or sprinting, as a sprinter would do.
So what are your key sort of techniques, if I can ask, in your coaching?
I tend to sort of lean towards the positive psychology and cognitive behavior coaching because I am a very positive person, and I feel that sometimes we don't realize that we do look at things with a very negative bias. And I've even done that recently too. Even as a coach, I said to someone, on a scale of 0 to 10, how positive do you think I am? Like the way I think. And they were like, oh God, you've got to be like 11, 12. And I said, really weird thing happened the other day. I'm doing a diploma at the moment because I'm always trying to, I think learning is important, and continue your learning and enhance your learning is so important. And I was looking at some feedback that I've been given, and I didn't look at it as feedback. I looked at the section that said improvements, and in my head it was, this is what I'm doing wrong. And I was focusing on things that I was doing wrong, didn't even look at all the things that I'd done well. And even me as a coach, I suddenly forgot, because I brought it into a session and they sort of sat back and went, what was that titled? And I went, improvements. And suddenly, as I said, I went, oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, the light bulb went off. But do you think it's the perfectionist in you?
Possibly.
Because I'm pretty certain that you would have acknowledged all the things that you've done right. And what you're looking at is, okay, what can I improve?
I honestly, I didn't. For that moment, I'm going to be completely honest. I didn't even look. I skimmed through the stuff that went okay. And I looked at the stuff, the improvements. But the one question someone asked me was, how would you feel if there were no improvements? There was nothing written. And I went, oh my God.
Would you feel perfect, or would you feel
No, I would have felt awful. I would have felt worse, because the way I think is we're always improving. We're always learning. You need that. You need it. So it was about me reframing that from a negative bias, actually to use that in a positive way. Right? So that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like, that is the reason why I think, the psychology of positivity works, cognitive behavior coaching works. And I even look at things in a negative bias. I have to catch myself now as well.
This is setting off some really kind of interesting thoughts in my head that, partially we are sort of perfectionists, but we take on positive feedback, but we still ask for constructive feedback as well. So somehow we're just not quite satisfied with just positivity. But of course, we want to turn everything into positives and the learning. So it's kind of like there's this bit of a battle going on in our own head, isn't it? That we want to be praised, but we want to know how to be even better. Then if someone says, oh, you are perfect, then in yourself, you know that you're not, that there's always room for improvement.
I just think that, as you know, in life, no one's ever perfect.
No.
Can you describe the word perfection? What does that mean to you? Because perfection
to me
will
mean something
different to me. So I don't believe that I don't think anyone ever thinks they're perfect. I think that's one thing that we don't. We might strive to be more successful. We might strive to be a better human being. We might strive to be healthier, but you're never going to get that perfect, and perfect doesn't exist. I don't actually think that word should be in the dictionary, because it's just a silly word, isn't it?
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. So you're currently an established coach now.
Yep.
And you are pretty much an established podcaster as well. And within both of these, I suppose, you are sort of challenging stereotypes in women in midlife.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
what kind of disciplines help you stay unapologetic about it?
I just think you need to be authentically you. I don't like constraints. I think society's changed. I think life has changed. I think the world has changed. So the disciplines in terms of, are you saying in my mindset and
Yeah.
thinking of,
Funny, the very first thing you said was authenticity, stay authentic. And it just reminded me of what you said earlier about asking your AI bot whether you should use what they say or stay authentic. And I think you just answered your own question.
yeah, absolutely. We stay authentic.
Yeah.
And I feel that in terms of, are you asking that from a business point of view or from a mindset point of view?
As you wish to interpret it.
Okay. So for me, women in midlife should think about what it is they want to do next. And if they don't know what they want to do, try and find out what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because midlife is just a thing, isn't it? I mean, I've heard someone, I saw someone write on their Instagram, they were in their 60s. The 60s is the new 40s. Well, if the 60s is the new 40s, what's the 50s? So I think, midlife also is now 40, 50 and 60. It's not
also,
it's not 50. There are 40-year-olds out there, 40-year-old women out there who, their kids are going to school now and they're a bit bored. They want to do something with their lives.
I was going to bring this in, like, the empty nester syndrome.
Yeah.
Do you find that people who've been at home as mothers and maybe not had a career, they find it easier or harder to set up their own business when they find themselves at home alone?
I think they're scared. To set up a business because they've been out of the working environment for so long. It's very, very daunting. I mean, even me, who has worked in the corporate world, having to set up my own business and all of the projects I'm working on, it's like I'm learning new things every single day. And I think what the key thing is, if you're willing to learn, then you can get there. And it doesn't matter at what pace you learn either. So I was talking...
Yeah, it's this constant, like, you are in the right place.
Yeah. So
I find that so hard to sort of cope with in a way, because obviously we just sort of want to be there. I want to have achieved it.
Yeah.
But interestingly, I had a little coaching session with a friend, and she actually appeared on a previous episode, Liz. She's a career coach as well. And she made me realize through questioning that I had this really deeply ingrained belief, this sort of "are we there yet?" that my mum kind of planted into me and forever enforced. And I had a proper epiphany moment with that conversation. And since then, I've been enjoying every single day of this journey of building my business, building my routine club, building up the podcast, conversing with people. I take so much more joy out of it nowadays since that epiphany moment.
I think, and it goes back to what I was saying about when I had the scan, the scientific scan done on my timelines. Right. And also Jake Humphreys wrote something on his LinkedIn, I think it was yesterday. It's your timeline. It's your timeline. What everybody else is doing, let them carry on doing what they're doing. But when things are right for you, it's like someone said to me, should I have been doing this when I was 21? It wasn't the right time for me. Yeah. And that's okay, because I'm doing it now and I've got the rest of my life to live. And I think, gone are the days where people go, oh, I'm 50. I say I'm only 50. Well, I'm 51, but I'm in my 50s. Yes. I feel young.
Absolutely.
I feel young. I feel alive. I feel that I'm learning so much new. I feel that I've got almost like a new brain that's suddenly come alive because I've got passion for life again. We go through life and we feel that we have to get married, we have to have children.
Society's rules.
And that's why I said to you, when you asked me about my disciplines, there aren't any. You have to live your life to what you feel is right. You'll find your own disciplines. Yeah. In terms of if I have I used to be very, very disciplined in my life. I did bodybuilding. So I
I
used
mean,
to,
yeah, that's truly awesome, and I'm really pleased you brought it up because I didn't know how to slot that in. So I'm glad it came up. People come to their 40s, 50s, they again, society's rules perhaps, but kind of want to slow down or thinking about retirement. At 40, you started bodybuilding.
yeah.
How did that come about?
It was my therapy at the time.
Okay.
I used to use, working out as a therapy, and I found a space in a gym where there were lots of women,
Okay.
and I could see these women competing. And I originally went there to train at the gym.
Okay.
And
Which is like a normal workout kind of.
it was more, I saw this girl and I was like, oh my God, you look amazing, you look fantastic. She said, I go to this gym and I'm on this food prep and this is what I do. And I thought, I'm always curious and I always want to try something new. And sports have been something quite hard for me because I'm partially blind in my left eye. So when I was younger, I veered away from sports completely.
Okay.
So as I got older, I had a personal trainer and I started doing things one-on-one because I felt that was my comfortable space. And when I found this group environment, I wanted to be a part of it.
Okay.
And so I went and I embarked on learning how to build my body and change my body. And I just thought it was just something that interested me. It was stepping on stage in a bikini in high heel shoes when I'm the most clumsiest person ever.
No, you're not.
I am. You can ask my husband. If I wear heels, I fall over. So for me, it was a real fear factor for me.
Wow.
And I think that was probably one of the pinnacle moments that my life began to change because I'd done something for myself. I was blending the family. I was dealing with the children. I was dealing with a lot of heartache, a lot of stress. I found something where I felt a part of a community that took me away from that, if that makes sense.
And it was yours.
And it was mine. It belonged to me. And it was something that I was doing.
How long did you do that for?
I did that from 2014 to 2017, I think. I did 2 competitions. The first one I did Miami Pro, and I entered a few categories and I won the Fit Mum. I came 4th or 5th in the Fit Mums competition. But it was an achievement, and I had my parents in the audience screaming and my kids screaming, and it was
brilliant.
It was
absolutely brilliant.
It was I'd walk around the house in my bikini and my heels and to practice to do my poses to feel confident. So I brought it into the home as well, something that was fun, and I wanted to show, I think, unknowingly, that the kids that I was a strong woman and I could do this. And I think
they can rely on you. But also, I think more importantly, the examples you were showing that you were going after something that you set out to do and you were achieving, you were being rewarded for it. So showing them that hard work in its own way does pay off.
Yeah, definitely. And then...
So then what kind of health routines, habits, things have you kept from those?
So after I competed, I had a little bit of a break, and then COVID hit us in 2020.
Yeah.
So for 3 years, I kind of kept up a bit of a routine, and then COVID hit and everything went out the window, right? So I decided that before I turned 50, I wanted to do something, and I didn't want to do a competition again because it's really harsh, and I didn't want to put my body through that. But I decided to do a photo shoot.
Okay.
And so for a year and a half, I trained. I'd be up at 5:15 in the morning. We turned our garage into a gym.
Right.
At the bottom of the garden. So I had my own gym, bought all my own stuff. My own equipment, decked it all out, and I started learning from an online coach how to train myself without a personal trainer being with me.
Right.
And that was another challenge in itself, because lifting a weight correctly, using the right technique, learning from videos, I had to re-watch back these videos. I had to get my technique right. It was a whole different way. It was
That's interesting. So all the stuff that you learned before, and you had a personal trainer you mentioned, and then you were in this group. Could you use much of that, or is it really quite that different when somebody is sort of showing it to you in that moment, like straighten your back a bit or tilt forward a bit more?
I felt that the online was more on me. I was more accountable.
Yes.
And having a trainer with me, I lent on them and you'd have a chat and
Okay.
I'd get kind of like lost in conversation. But actually when I was, and one thing one of my coaches always said to me, you're not, your brain and muscle aren't connecting. I always wanted to grow glutes. So I wasn't connecting the brain with the muscle. So this enabled my whole theory of doing this photo shoot was to prove to myself that I can ignite my glutes and I could create hamstrings.
Go on, tell me how. I'm set out to grow a J-Lo bum, and I've got a really flat bum.
It's certain
But
it's certain exercises that you do, and you have to do them repetitively and you have to do them slowly. And I didn't lift hugely heavy weights. It was all about the fixation on the brain and the muscle. So
how do you connect your brain to your muscle?
It's something you have to learn. It's something that you have to learn by moving your body around. So I'm very in tune with my body and the way that it moves and how I use it. And so I'd be up at 5:15 in the morning. I'd go down to the gym. I would train. I do 4 1-hour sessions of cardio a week on my cross trainer. Then I would do 4 1 to 1 sort of an hour and 20 minutes weight sessions a week, and I would walk for 2 hours every day. So the walking I did was from building to building. So I was working at the same time. So I was still working my corporate job. That's why I got up at 5:30 in the morning so I could leave the house by 7:30 to be in London. And so I'd do my cardio in the morning. My evening was my weight training. And then during the day, I would walk from literally King's Cross all the way over to East London and back to get anything to do anything up to 22,000 steps a day.
Wow. Where did family life fit into this? It sounds like your out of work hours were pretty much taken up by your training.
My family life took a little bit of a hit, but my children were growing up, and at that point, we'd spent a lot of time together during COVID. And then when I went back to work, they were at that point where they started to kind of get into their own routines and their own lives. I was always there.
Sort of late teens.
Yeah. And you've got to remember, my gym was in my garden, and that was the whole thing.
True.
So I'd literally come in from work, 5:30, I'd be in the gym till 6:30.
And then
I still had the evening with them.
I'll tell you what, that is such a deciding factor because it was in about 2019 after I finished my PGC, my teacher training course, that I put on a lot of weight during the PGC. It's an incredibly sort of hard year-long course. And then I joined a gym, like a program, like you kind of mentioned. And what I didn't like was the going to the gym bit. I found that driving to the gym, that's about 20 minutes, and then driving home was a waste of time. And it was one of the main reasons why I stopped doing that program, and I got to the end of the first sort of set of programs and then just carried on doing it at home. And that's what I do now. Get out of bed, potter around a little bit, make a cup of tea and stuff, and then exercise at home.
Yeah.
So I don't have to waste time going to a gym.
Yeah. I just found, the whole thing of carrying all my stuff, because I still had to look presentable at work. I couldn't just run out of the gym. I'm client facing. And for me, it was just, I needed something that was there that I could get up. And as you say, yes, my kids were starting to have their own lives, but I was also still around for them. And my gym sessions would be like on a Saturday, I'd get up. So now I podcast, but on a Saturday morning, I get up at 7:00 in the morning and I train, and then I've still got the whole day with the family.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's how I was very, very, very disciplined. Going back to the discipline, I was very disciplined. I was very structured. I ate 5 meals a day. I weighed all my food. I was given all my, the different sources of protein that I could eat, the different vegetables. I always ate separate. I've always eaten separately to the kids because of my bodybuilding.
Right. Okay.
They like to cook their own food now. My husband, I cook them different stuff. Didn't
they not clock onto it, or just cook them exactly the same thing what you were eating, or did it just not work like that?
I don't think they'd want to eat boiled chicken and broccoli. It was really
I was
boring.
Say I would. But then they could just put a bit of sauce on it.
I would cook my kids and Adam, my husband, the same food. I would cook myself something different. But as they got older, they got different eating habits. And my youngest, she cooks all her own food now. And my middle one, she she goes through wanting to be a vegetarian, vegan, and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So, you know,
Well, it's gonna be
just
harder.
everyone cooks their own food. Everyone cooks their own
Fair
food.
enough.
When you're a blended family, things are different. So my kids never liked to sit down together. It was one of those things. They'd sit down. My daughter eats in her bedroom. I hate it. I can't bear it, but it's her thing during COVID, especially because she really kind of went into herself. So now everyone does their own thing for food. That's probably one thing that I maybe feel that I missed out on, but it was just,
Not the family dinners.
I never did stuff that they didn't want to do. Why would I do that? You know, I'm not going to sit there and make you eat with me as a family every single night if that's not what you feel comfortable doing. They did as kids when they were growing up. They'd all sit around, the three of them would sit and have their dinner together. But as they grew older, they wanted to do their own thing. Okay. And I just thought, I'm a kind of person that, you know what?
You're not going to make an issue out of it. You're not going to argue with them.
I'm going to pick my battles. I'm going to pick my battles
peace
when I need to. If there's stuff going on internally for them and they don't want to be around somebody else right now because they're having a bad day, I'm not going to make them come downstairs and sit there and eat food. When one of them wants to watch something else on TV, it was just causing arguments. So, you know, I was very disciplined in myself, but I didn't have, I think my kids always said that I was quite a disciplinarian, apart from those things. But it was, you know, there were certain values and morals that I've had in my life that my grandparents have taught me that, you know, that I just feel is important as people, so that when they stepped into being 16, 17, 18, they knew wrong from right.
Yes.
So I'm here for you, and I will kick off about your room being untidy. But if there's a big problem at hand, which often there was, because, you know, unfortunately kids are kids nowadays. And I think that any parent that says their kids
I think kids have always been kids.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you read things from hundreds of years ago and you think it was written yesterday.
Yeah. So I kind of just said, you know, the door's open and I wanted them to want to come to me to talk about stuff. So what I bring into now my life is I don't have disciplines. When I sit down with a client, this is their space. Now, yes, we've got a structure to a coaching session. However, it's their space.
So that is your discipline, is to allow that space for your client?
Yeah. It's to allow that flexibility, allow that space, allow that non-judgmental time for them to talk to me about what they want to talk about. What is it you want to achieve today? Now, today might be a real business-focused goal, or today might be something personal that's happened in your life that you want to talk about, which will enable you to then achieve that goal, because it's not going on in the back of your mind when you're walking into a boardroom. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah, I get you.
I've learned not to eat 5 meals a day and weigh my food and get in the gym at 5:30 in the morning. I've learned to do things that light me up, that I've got passion for. I've learned to be a mum to children or young adults who are struggling in today's world. And, you know, I've learned to be a wife as well. And I think that's a different, you know, if you're a woman in business, you're also, if you've got a partner, you're either a partner or you're a wife to somebody. And how do you juggle that? Again,
that's a really interesting part of your life, how you make a feature out of this, that how much your husband supports you, and the sort of, you know, that you are famous and successful. I mean, I'm sure that he is in his own right, but it's quite interesting how you sort of question it publicly, and he's totally
I invited him onto the podcast because I thought it was important to hear a man's perspective on a woman in business and how he feels with me suddenly becoming or stepping into this space where I feel empowered, when I've got strength and I've got a voice now.
Yes.
And he's an incredible man, and I hope that there are other women who have, you know, men.
I'm incredibly fortunate to have a very similar husband standing beside me.
Yeah.
I mean, we support each other equally because he's building his own businesses. And in that sense, we are in the same boat because we know exactly what the other one is going through. So when it gets really busy, we don't get upset that we are not necessarily there immediately every day. But the support is just absolutely phenomenal. What do you find with your clients? Do you find that many people who are stepping into the sort of business world, especially women in midlife, do they have supportive partners?
I think they do, but I think it's about them being afraid to ask for help.
Okay.
And having those conversations with your partner, saying, I know I've been this person in our relationship and played this role, but this is now my time, like actually owning your voice and saying, I need you to come and step in and share this.
Is this something you support your clients with to step up to that?
Well, it's their if that conversation comes into play with coaching, it's always someone's own thought process and their own solution. So if they're struggling, I would never turn around and go, you need to do X, Y, and Z.
No, not necessarily, but do you sort of probe the situation out where?
Yeah, I would basically ask them what other help they have that they can look around them who's close to them. And it's like, well, if it's, well, my husband's working and he's doing late hours, and I would always say, but how do you feel about that? Where do you sit in that situation? And then we have the conversation around, how you can actually start to create a better framework at home that works for both of you, man and woman, that are living together. And as you said the word team, in marriage,
it is teamwork, isn't it?
It is teamwork.
Whether we like it or not.
Absolutely.
But yes, it is.
I think the world is changing. I think when I listen to lots of podcasts, but I think the younger generation are understanding now, and again, I'm on a bit of my soapbox and a crusade that a man and a woman who are in their 20s should not look at life as the woman has the baby and then takes time off work. If you have a baby, you have a baby together, and the two of you share that job and share that role.
Like to think that the world has moved on quite a bit on that front, has it not?
Yes, it is. But obviously, look at the population of the UK, and then you have to think about how many people still live in that world where their parents are telling them, and where they're living this life of, young girls think that they've got to just be that person, that they're going to have kids. And look, it's not with my children because they've seen me, but I wonder how many families there are, how many kids are growing up in families where they've seen their parents. Now, it could work both ways. It could work that, well, I'm meant to be like that because that's all I know. Yes. Or it could be, no, I'm going to go against the grain here, and I'm going to
it's one of the other, isn't it?
So, yeah, I think, the world is changing, the world is evolving, but more conversations need to be had in order for that to really be that sort of teamwork to be created. And I think it will help more women step up. And then one of the other things I think is really important is that there should not be a timeline of when you have a child. I'm speaking to women that are choosing to freeze their eggs now because they haven't found a partner and they're not sure if they want children yet. But obviously they know that in later life, they might want a child.
What do you think if you go sort of, I don't necessarily want to put a barrier on it, but when you sort of over 40, roughly, so slightly from personal experience with a couple of friends and kind of my own mindset and the view of the world, but sort of 40 seems to be that sort of tipping point where beyond that, would you still have the patience for a baby and a toddler and a little child as you go into your 50s?
I decided not to have a child with my husband. I said when I hit 40, if I haven't had a child, then another, together, because we've got our children together. Yeah. Then, if I didn't fall pregnant, then that will be it, because I didn't want to have a child past 40, but that was my decision. But there are some
interestingly that your decision is very much on the same, because without going very deep into it, I've got arthritis. When I was 35, I was recommended a type of medication that would have meant I was told in no uncertain terms that if I fall pregnant, I'll have to abort, full stop. So at 35, I had to make this decision to either take the medication to make my life easier, because it's quite a debilitating disease, having arthritis. It's literally through much higher sort of level of medication now that I'm actually mobile. Or do I not take the medication, have a child, but then really suffer with my health? Doubly probably, because then how do I care for baby when I'm hardly mobile. And I made a decision to take the medication and just be done with it. Like 35, if it hasn't happened, whatever. And then once I turned around 40, I started to notice in my mind that I was having literally year by year less and less regrets. Although I don't think I had regrets as such, but I was almost like grateful that I didn't have to care for a teenager and stuff like that. Or also sad to say that I'm quite happy I'm not leaving a child behind for this ghastly world we are creating.
Well, I think there's a lot of women now who are deciding not to have children. I have friends who haven't had children, and I interviewed someone on my podcast the other day, and she is basically helping or bringing a community together of women who are child free, and how you deal with all those challenges in your life, because people ask you questions, people assume. You know, the world is built for women to have children, right?
Yeah.
You look at all the adverts on TV, it's all families with kids, and you go to a party, and I've done it myself. You want to say, so have you got a family? It's just a natural thing. And, I think we as a society need to
society's
stop.
Rules. Yeah.
We need to stop that, because I think it's going to happen that a lot of the next generation will decide not to have children because of financial reasons.
Too bad of a thing, because I mean, without going really deep into it at all, but the earth is way, way, way too overcrowded. So I think a little change and a little cutback on that will be a good thing.
Yeah,
That's
I think, but I think it's more to do with, I can have this life and I can feel fulfilled. And why do I need to have a child in order to feel fulfilled? Because, a lot of people will have children, if they're married or whatever, they'll think, oh, I've got to have a child. But then what about your career? You could have an amazing career and feel as fulfilled. Children are amazing, don't get me wrong. And, it's a wonderful experience, but it's also extremely challenging.
Absolutely. I mean, I did look after children, have little kids in the family and stuff, have experience. And I think that reinforces that I'm actually quite happy in myself and in my life that I don't have one.
And I think as a woman in business, if you're starting out in midlife thinking about kids and what you've been through, look at the skills that you've created and you've gained, not created, the skills that you've gained throughout your life as a mum, and think about, if you go into a job interview and you've had a bit of a gap in your CV, or you want to start a new business, look at that skill set that you have now, because
what's the bad that women don't put down their parenting years as skills? And my goodness, they're the most adaptable skills of all, aren't they?
Diary management, organization, planning, activities, people skills. Yeah, absolutely.
All of it.
All of that. You are a businesswoman, or you are a manager or a team leader.
I'm sure you could write a book about it.
I could probably write a book.
If you could give women, especially, I suppose, but anyone in midlife wanting to start a new business, what action would you pick out for them to take, apart from go and do it, but to support them in actually succeeding?
I would strongly suggest that you look back through your life and look at the things that you have done, the experiences that you've learned, the skills that you've gained, the people that are around you as well. Because I can guarantee you there are people around you who also have skills. Yes. And there's relationships that you've built throughout your life. So it's always looking back on everything you've learned and the people that are around you.
And trust your experiences
100%.
and take from them.
100%.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
That's all right. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciated being here and being able to speak. I'm usually on the other side of the microphone.
Fabulous. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for listening to New Business in Later Life with me, Ildikó Sealey, where we say no to slowing down and yes to starting up. Loved what you've heard? Please share it, screenshot it, and tag me on socials. Let's show the world what thriving in later life really looks like, and share with a friend who is ready for their next chapter. Please subscribe so you are always in the loop. And if you were ready to stop running on empty and start running on purpose, well, come join us. All the links are waiting in the show notes, including my guests' contacts, the Entrepreneurs Club, and the few tools and services I personally use in my business to help you thrive in yours. Until next time, refuel, refocus, reinvent.